She said it so softly I almost thought I imagined it. I'm 55, but do you dare see what I can still do? That line has lived in my head ever since, but the truth is, the story began long before those words ever left her lips. I had noticed her for years, the kind of noticing you try to pass off as casual, but isn't. She was the woman across the fence, the one with a garden always more alive than mine, the one who walked out to collect her mail in slippers and made it look elegant. Mid-40s when I first moved in, though she carried herself with the kind of poise that made age seem irrelevant. I told myself she was simply a neighbor, nothing more. But it was hard not to pay attention when her presence filled even the quietest space. That evening, the one that started everything, the air was heavy with the smell of rain-soaked earth. The storm had just passed, leaving the street damp and shining. I was fixing the loose hinge on my front gate when she appeared. Her steps were unhurried, the faintest smile tucked at the corner of her mouth, as though she already knew I'd look up. "You're always working on something," she said. Her voice carried that husky undertone that makes you want to lean closer, even if you don't need to. I laughed lightly, brushing dirt off my hands, trying to keep the place from falling apart. She tilted her head, studying me longer than politeness required. For a moment, it felt like the entire street hushed. Then she stepped closer, enough that I could see the raindrops still clinging to strands of her hair. "Some things fall apart no matter what you do," she murmured. I didn't know if she was talking about the gate or herself. Our silence stretched, not empty, but taut, like a rope pulled tight. I noticed the faint trace of perfume lingering even in the damp air. She smelled like warmth, like something lived in and sure of itself. When she reached to touch the gate, her hand brushed mine, the lightest contact, accidental by appearance, deliberate by everything else. My pulse stuttered. I should have moved my hand back, but I didn't. Neither did she. "You've got calluses," she said softly, almost teasing. Her thumb traced the ridge of my palm before she pulled away, pretending it was nothing. I tried to form a reply, but words seemed to fall apart in my throat. Instead, I watched the way her eyes lingered, then darted away, as if she had said too much without speaking. She shifted her weight, a graceful movement that somehow felt like a confession. "You're younger than me," she said, not as a question but as an observation. "Does that matter?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her laugh was quick, sharp, and then gone. "That depends." We stood so close the space between us became a question neither of us wanted to answer. My chest tightened with the urge to step into that space, to see if the electricity humming in the air would hold if I touched her again, this time with intention. But her gaze flicked to the street, then back to me. Something unspoken tugged at the corners of her lips, a smile, a warning, or both. "Don't look at me like that," she said softly. I swallowed. "Like what?" She didn't answer. She just turned, her shoulder brushing mine as she stepped past me, her arm grazing against my sleeve. That small, fleeting contact felt louder than the rain dripping from the rooftops. I turned my head, ready to say something, anything, to stop her from walking away. But just as the words formed, a sharp sound broke the moment. The creak of her front door opening. Both of us froze, caught in that split second of tension. Someone was inside her house. And just like that, the charged air between us shifted, from possibility to uncertainty, from unspoken to interrupted. She glanced back at me, her expression unreadable, and whispered, barely audible over the dripping rain, "Not now." And then she stepped inside, leaving me standing in the damp street, my heart beating too hard for a conversation that had barely begun. The next morning, I caught myself replaying the sound of her voice, that low whisper, "Not now." It sat in my chest like an unfinished chord. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Just neighborly small talk stretched a little too far. But the truth was, I couldn't stop noticing her. I noticed the way her curtains moved in the breeze when her window was cracked open. I noticed her laugh drifting faintly across the fence when she took phone calls on her porch. I noticed the way her garden smelled faintly of rosemary and damp soil after rain. I noticed her. Too much. That evening, I found myself outside again, pretending to tinker with the gate hinge I had already fixed. And like she had been waiting for me, she appeared. No umbrella, just a cardigan pulled around her shoulders. "You really have an obsession with that gate," she teased, her lips curling just slightly. "Maybe I'm just hoping someone will come distract me from it," I said, half under my breath. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, curious, before she let out a quiet laugh. "Careful. People might misunderstand things like that." I wanted to ask, "And you? Would you misunderstand?" But I didn't. Instead, she stepped closer, her hand brushing lightly against the gate post, close enough that her sleeve grazed my forearm. That near touch sent a ripple through me I hoped didn't show on my face. "I wasn't trying to be rude yesterday," she said, her tone softer now. "The door, it wasn't the right time." "You don't have to explain." "I do," she said quickly, then caught herself, biting her lip. "You're young. You don't understand what people assume, what they say when they see something they don't expect." The words hung between us. There it was, the thing neither of us had said aloud. The years between us. The way an older woman and a younger man would look to the rest of the world. But in that moment, it didn't feel like numbers on a page. It felt like the closeness of her body, the warmth radiating from her skin. I shifted, leaning against the post, trying to play casual. "You think I care what people say?" "You should." Her eyes softened, the kind of softness that hides a bruise underneath. "I've been through enough to know it isn't that simple." I wanted to ask what she meant. Who had hurt her? What relationships had left her so careful, so quick to pull back? But she gave me nothing more than silence, her gaze steady and unreadable. Still, silence has a way of speaking louder than words. "Were you married?" I asked, cautiously. Her jaw tightened, just a fraction. Then she nodded. "Once. A long time ago." "And now?" "Now," she exhaled, eyes shifting toward the ground, the faintest crease between her brows. "Now I keep busy. I try not to notice the quiet too much." Her honesty caught me off guard. She had said it like someone who never admits loneliness out loud, only when it slips. I wanted to reach for her hand, but instead, I let the words slip out. "I notice it too." She looked up at me then, really looked, as though she was weighing something dangerous in her chest. The air between us thickened. Her fingers lingered a second too long on the gate, then brushed across my sleeve again, this time with no excuse. The touch was fleeting, but it lingered like fire. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "Then stop standing so close," I said before I could stop myself. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Her eyes searched mine, as though waiting for me to break the tension. But I didn't. Finally, she sighed, not with frustration, but with something closer to surrender. Her hand lifted, hesitated in the air, then landed lightly on my shoulder. Her fingers curled just enough to feel deliberate, her breath brushing against my cheek as she leaned in, close enough that the warmth of her exhale stirred the hair near my temple. I didn't dare move. Her lips parted like she might say something, but instead, she pulled back just slightly, her hand still on me, her voice barely audible, "Don't make me regret this." The way she said it wasn't a warning. It was an invitation wrapped in fear. And for the first time, I realized we weren't standing on opposite sides of an age gap. We were standing on the same edge of something we both weren't sure we could step into. The line between us was getting thinner. I could feel it every time she lingered just a fraction too long, every time her hand grazed mine like it was by accident. The more we pulled back, the more something inside us leaned forward. It was late, a week after the evening she had touched my shoulder. The sky was still holding on to the last threads of dusk, the air cool and sweet. She had asked me to help move a box of old books from her garage. The task was simple. But the way her fingers brushed mine each time we passed a stack, it wasn't simple at all. Her garage smelled faintly of dust and lavender sachets that had long since lost their strength. A single lamp buzzed in the corner, throwing uneven shadows on the walls. "Careful," she said as I lifted the last box. "That one's heavier than it looks." I grinned, pretending the weight didn't pull at my arms. "I've got it." She watched me carry it inside, her gaze trailing longer than necessary. I set it down in her living room, straightened, and realized how quiet the house was. Too quiet. When she closed the door behind us, the click echoed like something binding. She stood there for a moment, hand still on the doorknob, her face half lit by the lamp. "You shouldn't keep coming here at night," she said softly. "Do you want me to stop?" Her lips parted, but the answer didn't come. Instead, she let go of the doorknob and walked closer, the soft brush of her cardigan sleeve against my arm making my breath catch. "People talk," she murmured. "Especially in this neighborhood." They'll think the truth," I said, before I could stop myself. Her eyes locked on mine, startled, searching. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then, her phone lit up on the counter. A sharp buzz. The sound cracked the air between us. She startled, stepping back quickly, fumbling to silence it. The glow of the screen reflected in her eyes. Her thumb hovered, then she pressed decline without looking at me. "Was it important?" I asked. She shook her head too quickly. "It's nothing." But her voice trembled just enough to betray her. We stood in silence, the hum of the fridge and the tick of the clock louder than anything. I took a step closer. Then another. She didn't move. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back to my eyes. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I shouldn't," she whispered, but the words trailed into nothing. I lifted my hand slowly, like if I moved too quickly the moment would shatter. My fingers brushed a strand of hair back from her face, tucking it gently behind her ear. Her breath caught, I felt it on my wrist, warm and unsteady. "Tell me to stop," I whispered. Her lips parted, but no words came. I leaned in, close enough to feel the nearness of her body, close enough that the faint scent of her perfume curled into me. My nose brushed the air just above her cheek, my mouth an inch from hers. And then, foot after that night in her living room, the footsteps outside, the almost moment that slipped away, nothing felt the same. Every encounter was louder, sharper, even in silence. Her eyes lingered a second too long, her laughter cut too quickly. I caught myself waiting for her blinds to open in the mornings, counting the times I heard her doors shut in the evenings. I was unraveling, and so was she. It happened on a Thursday. The air was heavy with the kind of summer heat that clings to your skin. She was trimming her roses when I came by, a flimsy excuse about borrowing a wrench already rehearsed on my tongue. She glanced up at me, her cheeks flushed from the sun, a few strands of hair sticking to her forehead. Even messy, she carried herself with the elegance of someone who had long ago stopped trying to impress and yet always did. "You work too hard," I said, reaching for the clippers. "Let me help." "I don't need," she started, but when my hand closed gently over hers to take the tool, her words caught. She didn't pull away. Her skin was warm, soft beneath the grit of gardening. I lingered a second too long before I set the clippers down. She watched me, lips parted, breathing uneven. Then, with a sudden sharpness in her voice, she asked, "Why do you keep coming here?" The question cut deeper than the thorns. I swallowed, unsure if she wanted the truth or the lie. My voice betrayed me anyway. "Because I can't stay away." Her eyes softened, then hardened again, as if two halves of herself were at war. "You're young. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." I stepped closer, my chest brushing against her arm. The scent of roses clung to her skin, intoxicating. Her breath trembled out, hot against my neck. "This is dangerous." "Then why are you still standing here?" The words hung in the thick air. She stared at me, something breaking in her composure. Finally, she whispered, "Because I want it too." The confession landed between us like a spark to dry leaves. I reached up, fingers brushing gently through her hair, tucking the damp strands behind her ear. My hand lingered, sliding down to cradle the side of her neck. Her pulse fluttered beneath my thumb, fast and unsteady. She leaned, just slightly, into my touch. The world shrank until all I could hear was the uneven rhythm of our breathing. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she murmured, her voice trembling. "Tell me to stop," I whispered back, my lips inches from hers. Her eyes closed for a heartbeat too long, as if fighting herself. Then they opened again, shining with something raw and unguarded. "I can't." That broke me. I drew her closer, our bodies aligning in a way that left no room for doubt. My hand slid to her waist, her fingers clutching lightly at my shirt as though she needed the anchor. The heat between us was unbearable, the kind that left no air in my lungs. I bent closer, my mouth brushing the edge of her cheek, my breath mingling with hers. And just as her lips tilted toward mine, a sharp knock at her front door split the moment in two. She stiffened, pushing back slightly, her eyes wide with alarm. The knock came again, louder this time. We both stood frozen, the ghost of a kiss hovering in the air between us. My hand was still at her waist, her fingers still gripping my shirt. Neither of us moved. Then she whispered, barely audible, a tremor in her voice, "If you don't leave now, everything changes." The knock at her door still echoed in my chest long after I slipped out through the back. I'd walked home in a daze, replaying the almost kiss, the feel of her hand gripping my shirt, the tremor in her whisper, "If you don't leave now, everything changes." But everything already had. The next day, I tried to bury myself in routine, mowing the lawn, tightening bolts on a fence post that didn't need fixing. Yet I kept glancing at her house, half expecting her curtains to flutter, half terrified they would. By evening, the silence became unbearable. I found myself at her porch, knocking once before I lost my nerve. She opened the door with a quickness that startled me. Her eyes were sharp, restless, as though she hadn't stopped pacing since yesterday. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice low. "Then why'd you open the door?" Her jaw tightened. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she stepped aside, letting me in. The house felt different. The lamp in the corner threw shadows that seemed to crowd the room, the air heavy with the faint scent of coffee gone cold. "I need to tell you something," she said, closing the door quietly behind me. Her hands trembled as she pressed them together. She looked away when she spoke. "Last night, whoever knocked. It wasn't a stranger. It was my sister." I blinked, caught off guard. She knows me better than anyone. She asked why the lights were on so late. Why I didn't answer the door. She suspects something. Her voice cracked. If she tells the wrong person, the implications hit me all at once. What had felt like a secret suspended between us now had a shadow looming over it. What had been thrilling suddenly felt like standing on a ledge with the ground shifting below. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. So what? Let her suspect. She doesn't know. You don't understand, she said sharply, finally meeting my eyes. People in this town, they don't forgive. They'll twist it, turn me into. She stopped, biting her lip hard enough to leave a mark. Her body stiffened, but when I reached out, brushing the back of my hand against hers, she didn't move away. Instead, her fingers opened, hesitated, then curled around mine like she couldn't help herself. For a moment, silence swallowed us whole. Her breathing quickened, her chest rising and falling too fast, her body angled as if ready to flee but rooted by my touch. You think I care what they say? I whispered. I don't. But I do, she snapped, pulling her hand back, pacing across the room. Her shoulders were taut, her steps too sharp. I've lived with whispers before. Do you know what it's like to have people stare every time you walk into a room? To hear your own friends talk about you when they think you can't hear. I watched her, the tension breaking through her usually measured composure. She looked, younger, somehow. Wounded. My chest ached, but my body moved before thought caught up. I crossed the room, catching her wrist gently. She stopped mid-stride, her breath shuddering. I don't want to be another mistake for you to regret, I said. She turned to me, eyes glassy, lips parted. Slowly, she stepped closer, so close her shoulder brushed my chest, so close I could feel the warmth of her breath spilling against my collar. You're not a mistake, she whispered, almost angrily, as if the words betrayed her. That's the problem. Her hand lifted, hovered near my face, trembling. She tucked a strand of hair behind my ear the way I had done for her days ago. The gesture lingered too long, her fingertips grazing my skin, trailing down to the edge of my jaw. I caught her wrist gently, holding her hand there against my cheek. Neither of us spoke. The silence was more dangerous than any words. Finally, she pulled her hand away, stepping back just enough to breathe. We can't keep pretending this isn't happening. I nodded, my throat dry. Then maybe we stop pretending. She froze, the words hanging in the air like a match hovering over kindling. Her chest rose sharply, her lips parting as if to protest, but no protest came. Instead, she whispered, almost to herself, if we do this, there's no going back. And for the first time, she didn't walk away. The air between us was different now, not filled with hesitation, not even denial. It was thick with inevitability, like a storm you can smell before the rain starts. She stood in front of me, her hand still trembling from where I'd held it against my cheek moments before. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, conflicted, but no longer pretending. If we do this, she whispered, her voice low, breaking at the edges, there's no undoing it. I swallowed hard. Then stop me now. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she took one small step forward. That was enough. Our bodies aligned so close that even the space between our breaths seemed too much. I could feel the warmth of her chest against mine, her pulse racing where her wrist brushed my hand. Her perfume, faint and familiar, wrapped around me until it was impossible to think of anything else. Tell me this is wrong, I whispered, my mouth hovering near her temple, my breath stirring the strands of hair that had fallen loose around her face. Her eyes closed for a moment, her forehead resting lightly against my chin. If I say it's wrong, she murmured, will you believe me? No, I said. Not anymore. Her laugh was soft, broken, a laugh that wasn't really a laugh at all, more like a sob turned inside out. She leaned into me, her body trembling, her hands finding my shirt again, clutching it as if she needed something solid to hold on to. Do you know what you're asking for? She breathed. Yes, I said. You. The word hung in the air, undeniable. Her hand slid up my chest, slow, tentative, until it reached my collar. She stayed there, fingers tightening just enough that I felt her uncertainty in her grip. I covered her hand with mine, pressing it closer, as if to anchor her to me. The silence that followed was unbearable. My heart beat so loudly I was sure she could feel it against her palm. Every second stretched, every pause charged with what we both already knew. Then she lifted her head, her eyes finally meeting mine. There was no disguise left, no hesitation. Only truth. "I've tried to stop thinking about this," she whispered, her breath brushing my lips. "But I can't. Not when you look at me like that." Her confession broke the last barrier between us. I leaned in, closing the space, my nose brushing hers, my lips hovering just shy of hers. The closeness was electric, raw, too much and not enough all at once. "Then don't stop," I said, the words nothing more than a breath. And finally, she didn't. Her mouth met mine in a kiss that wasn't polished or careful, but messy, trembling, desperate. Her hand slid up around my neck, pulling me closer, while mine found her waist, pressing her against me as though I could keep her there forever. It wasn't the kind of kiss that answered questions. It was the kind that burned through them, leaving nothing but heat and honesty behind. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, she kept her forehead against mine, eyes closed, her chest rising and falling against me. "We can't go back," she whispered, almost in warning. I shook my head. "I don't want to." She opened her eyes then, and for the first time, I saw her without walls, the loneliness, the fear, the longing, all tangled together. But also something else. Something softer. Clarity. She cupped my face in both hands, her thumbs brushing the edges of my jaw, and said quietly, "Then whatever happens, we face it together." And in that moment, there was no more pretending, no more distance, no more almosts. There was only us, standing on the other side of everything we tried so hard to resist. The kiss had changed everything, but strangely, it hadn't made the world louder. If anything, the world outside seemed to fade, the distant hum of cars, the chatter of neighbors, even the tick of her kitchen clock. All I could feel was the afterglow of her lips against mine, the press of her body still close, the faint tremor in her hands as they lingered at my jaw. We stayed like that for a long while, forehead to forehead, breathing each other in. Neither of us spoke, as though words might unravel what had finally been tied between us. Eventually, she pulled back, not far, just enough to look at me properly. Her eyes were searching, cautious, but softer now. The guardedness I'd grown used to was cracked open, and what shone through was something both fragile and fierce. "You realize," she murmured, her thumb brushing my cheek as though she still couldn't believe I was real, "this won't be easy." I nodded, fingers still resting at her waist. "I don't need easy." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, half disbelief, half surrender. "You're too young to say things like that." I leaned closer, my voice low, steady. "Or maybe I'm just young enough to mean them." Her breath caught, and for a moment, I thought she might pull away again. But instead, she leaned in, resting her head against my shoulder. The weight of it, the warmth of her, settled something deep inside me. We stood like that for what felt like forever, no urgency, no pretense. Just the quiet comfort of closeness finally allowed. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I was married for 12 years. When it ended, I promised myself I wouldn't open this door again. Too much gossip, too many scars." I tightened my hold on her, my hand sliding gently down her back. "Then don't open it. Just leave it broken, and let me walk through anyway." She laughed softly into my shirt, a laugh tinged with disbelief and relief all at once. "You don't know what you're signing up for." "Maybe not," I admitted. But I know what I'd regret if I didn't. Her fingers found mine then, weaving between them, gripping tightly. The simplicity of it, our hands joined, warm and sure, was more intimate than anything else. We sat down together on her worn sofa, shoulders pressed close, our fingers still locked. She leaned into me, and I pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Not rushed, not hungry, but slow. A promise, not a demand. For the first time, I felt her body fully relax into mine. I was afraid of being seen, she whispered. Afraid of what they'd think. But the truth is, I was afraid of being alone more. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to be anymore. She tilted her head up, eyes glimmering in the soft lamplight. You're stubborn. Only with you. Her smile bloomed, real this time, unguarded, warm, beautiful. She leaned in and kissed me again, slower, deeper, like she had finally given herself permission. And in that kiss, there was no fear of age, no whispers of gossip, no regrets of years lost. Only the steady certainty of two people who had stopped fighting what had been building all along. When we broke apart, she stayed pressed against me, her fingers tracing lazy patterns across my palm. We'll figure it out, she said quietly. Together. And for the first time, I believed her. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?